Hello and welcome to All My Life, SPO's new podcast where we take deep dives into lifelong discipleship. My name is Emma. I'm one of your hosts.
And I'm Ryan. And you're joined on the couch with SPO's new president, David Fischer. David, welcome to the show.
Oh my goodness. Good to be with both of you. Mm-hmm. Congratulations on this. This is having a podcast with SPO. I'm very excited about this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We are too. We've converted the Minnesota office into our podcast studio and inviting just different staff members, and you were on the short list, David. Mm-hmm. We just were really looking forward to connecting with you and kind of hearing your story. We've met with different staff members, and that's kind of what we're focusing on here in season one, people who are working and serving with SPO. And your story with SPO goes way back.
Yeah.
Actually, you were a part of my first experience of SPO.
That's right.
In February, it was 23 years ago, right about now, when I was at the University of Missouri Newman Center, and you were serving with SPO. You're helping to lead. You were leading this retreat down in Missouri. You guys drove down through a crazy snow and ice storm from Minnesota to the middle of Missouri for a retreat that I was helping to put on for college students at University of Missouri, and you guys helped. That's where we first met.
I remember that. You remember these types of things in little snaps, little snippets, right? And snapshot in time. I remember specifically being in a very cold van where the heat was having issues. We were not able to defrost the front of that windshield fast enough. All of us in that van trying to get through lines. You're just trying to follow the lights, the tail lights in front of you, on our way to give this retreat. And we, of course, back then, as we still do today, it's like, clearly the enemy doesn't want us to go there, so we want to get there even more, right? And so we're all making our way to do this retreat. And yeah, that was where I met you. And
I wonder, really, we don't need to get into all this, but I often wonder, what would have happened if you guys would have turned around? And it would have made sense. I mean, the roads were terrible, not passable. And, I don't know if I'd be serving with SPO. So many different things happened in my life, spiritually and otherwise, because of that first experience. And you were helping to lead worship. You were leading the music that weekend. Yeah. So that was really impactful. So
many things like that, right?
Yeah.
That we could ask ourselves,
where would I be?
What would have happened?
Yeah. But your life since then has taken a number of amazing turns, just in terms of your professions. You were a lawyer and a film producer and a guy who's raising tons of money for various Catholic organizations, also SPO, so you worked in development. You're
also raising a lot of children.
Yes.
That's where I thought you were going.
I did too. I was like, you're also raising a lot of money.
Yeah.
9 kids. That is amazing. What's one profession you wouldn't want to be a part of? What's something that is out of your comfort zone? I mean, that's an amazing list of things that you've done, and you're an incredibly gifted man, and could kind of take a pick. But what's one thing you wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole that wouldn't be in an area of gifting for you?
I don't think, honestly, sitting behind a computer, thinking smart all day long is like the death of me. I need to be around people. I love to interact with people. I love the kind of the curveballs that just come with a day, where that's just the human experience. But when for me just to sit behind a computer and focus and just live inside my mind and try to kind of solve problems or create systems or establish order, that is not me. That's not me. And I really have a lot of respect for people that can do that. For me, it just takes life out of me, and I actually get a lot of life by the curveballs of a day. that comes.
True extroverted nature.
I suppose, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
That's definitely helped in all the other areas of life that I've been a part of. It's funny when you bring up the kids, and when you made a joke about the kids. Most of the time, people that know me, when I'm introduced to someone else, they're the first ones to tell them how many kids I have. Most people love to say how many kids I have to new people that I've never met.
Do they just like to watch the reaction? Like,
I think
this
so.
is going to be
Probably,
cool.
yeah.
Like, when I
You
tell
got to hear this.
Yeah.
This guy has 9 kids. And it's been that way ever since we probably hit 4, 5.
Really?
People want to be like, people want to say, this guy has 5 kids. This guy has 6 kids. It's the first thing they say. Sometimes I'll wait. I might not even tell people how many kids I've got for a while because their eyes cross slightly. They might wonder, take a step back and be like, whoa.
What's the best part about having a big family that people who don't have a big family would be surprised by? Or having a bunch of kids,
Yeah.
whatever.
2 things. I've got kind of a funny answer that comes to mind right off the bat, which is, man, when your kids get into varsity sports, it is awesome having someone else that can drive in the house, kids that can go and help deal with all of that kind of stuff. I definitely, it was painful when my oldest was in football, basketball, and baseball, and those coaches do not care about your schedule as a parent. And so you're waiting to pick your child up from school at all different times of the day, at all different times of the night. It was like a glorious moment for my wife and I when we had other kids. And now, from this point forward, we're going to have someone that can drive. I am happy to pay for that car insurance and that car to make sure that they can get picked up. I think probably on a little bit more of a deeper level, the kind of love that you receive from a child, I don't care how many you have, is something that's like locked in a special place in a parent's heart. And you have those moments. And just imagine experiencing that in a different way, in a unique way, multiple times. I'm able to actually tap into something. It pulls something out of me, but I'm loved in a unique kind of a way by my kids. And that, that's been like a game changer for me in recent years. Game changer when it comes to the Father's love, which I struggle with a little bit when it comes to like receiving the love of the Father, God the Father, for a lot of reasons. It's been my children, boys and girls, that have given me the love of God the Father more than anything else that I could point to in my life. So that I would say that 9 times over, I get to experience that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a beautiful kaleidoscope, like all these different kind of refractions of the love of God sort of demonstrated into, to you. And what a beautiful testimony. How do you keep the ships kind of running on? I mean, how does that work for you and Laura? Just the communication, even your older kids. I mean, you probably in some ways kind of bring them into some leadership, if you will, of family life, I would think.
Yeah. Well, first, you got to invest in a good stalking app, which Life 360 is my stalking.
Yes, STALK.
I stalk my children. No, I have a little face for each one of them on my phone. Although I told my oldest, you can choose to turn it off whenever you want. But if we know where all the kids are at all times when they've got their device in their backpack or wherever they have it, and that gives us a certain sense of just safety, and we love it. But all credit, 110% goes to Laura. There is no way my children would not have the joy in their lives if I was the one in charge of their schedules and keeping the ship going in the right direction. They would be, it would be like being in some kind of Charles Dickens Oliver Twist probably type environment where everything's gray and dad is in charge. You do not want that. God help us here at SPO. We got to be careful that it doesn't become that here. but I'm not.
That's why you got us.
Laura is exactly. Laura is amazing. Laura's got a incredible capacity, a lot of empathy, patience, and she's joyful. And those things all kind of combine. She's got a great sense of humor. It creates a kind of light atmosphere. And so when mom gets frustrated, we pay attention. We pay attention quickly because she doesn't all that often, right? So it's dad gets frustrated more than mom.
That's real.
Yeah.
That's real. What contribution do you bring to the table that's unique in that?
I'm pretty goofy around my family because I bring a kind of, I have high expectations for the kids, right? So I want them to experience that. I want them to know that doing a good job and doing things well is important in life. If you try hard, that's all I'm expecting, right? I'm perfectly fine with if a child gets a C, or, over an A, right? And I've said that clearly. In fact, I've told some of my girls, I want you to get C's and D's so that you don't go to the East and West Coast for school. That way you can stay by dad, stay home, and be close to us. I want you, C's are perfectly fine. But the boys, they can probably move to the East and West Coast, but my girls have to stay close. But I bring a kind of goofiness to the house that probably most dads pride themselves in at a certain level. There's a reason why sitcoms have the dads so goofy. It's because it taps into a very real thing that we like to do that. So I have no problem.
Haven't you done some TikTok dances or something? Is that?
That would be one way. I don't know how this got out, but that would be one way of being goofy. Yeah, I've gotten my kids laughing pretty hard by doing a TikTok dance that then they get me kind of involved in.
Those are fun.
Love it.
Yeah.
Looking back on,
you know what? I'm going to say this
as
well. Spiritual fatherhood. In the house, the kids do look to me to be a leader in our faith. Laura's got incredible, amazing faith, but there is something about a dad calling us together and kind of leading us in that space that I have taken very seriously as well. And I think they look to me for that. So, bedtime prayers, I try not to miss, sitting on their bed and praying over them, giving them a kiss on the forehead, and helping them know that God loves them. Saying that every day, important. And then kind of closely related to that is just affirming each one of them in a way that a dad can affirm their child, blessing them in a certain kind of a way, making sure my daughters understand how beautiful they are, making sure my sons understand how much I love them. Those are important things that I take seriously.
That can only come from many experiences in your own life of God's faithfulness, of God's fatherhood. And him, in a sense, affirming who he made you to be, and standing with you, standing by you. I'm certain over the years you've had many and varied encounters of kind of God's faithfulness to you. Does one experience or one story of God's presence and commitment in your life, his faithfulness to you, does one story or season of life kind of come to mind that you could share about kind of God's faithfulness in your life?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. Although I'm going to put a caveat on that a little bit, which is oftentimes the more that you can, I think for me, the more that I can actually rely on God the Father in the areas of life that I have not received, actually then I allow him just to kind of work through me. So I grew up in a single parent home. I had a relationship with my dad, but I didn't experience a father that I was proud of, or that I had that kind of it was tough. It was a tough upbringing. Didn't have the kind of attention, didn't have the blessing from my dad or the kind of confidence booster. Very rare for him to ever make it to any of my games. Didn't live in the state all my childhood. And so I didn't know what a father could do. and the faithfulness that a father could actually provide in my life. And so some of those people in my life that did step in by God's faithfulness, the people that he brought to me, were people that were closely connected to the church. And so that was something that was just imprinted on me from my childhood. My mom was close to the church, and so I grew up looking up to particularly men that loved the Lord and that kind of stepped in at unique times of my life and gave me that blessing that I didn't get from my own dad. My dad loved me, and but I didn't have that kind of connection in faith. He wasn't. He didn't actually. He left the Catholic Church and really we didn't talk about faith. It wasn't something that I shared with my father. So maybe some of the people that had that kind of connection with me. I mean, this is where SPO has such a unique part in my life, is that Gordy DeMarais was one of those people. You know, Gordy actually stepped in like an older brother at a time in my life where I really needed that, and shared a kind of care for me that was not based on what I could perform or do for him, but actually he just straight up walked with me as a friend. That was an older brother in the Lord that was kind of leading the way that I could look up to and be actually impressed with the decisions he was making in his life, and then be like, wow. And then to have him kind of invest in me, I felt it was like God investing in me in a lot of ways. People like Gordy. Mark Burcham was another one of those people in my life, the founder of Net Ministries, and some great priests in here in the local archdiocese that invested in me. Father John Ubel was a really important person in my life as a kid. When he was when he was a priest in his first year as a priesthood, he was working at St. Thomas Academy. He invested in me because he went up to the CYC camp, the Catholic youth camp that the diocese kind of ran, and he did confessions, and he met me and invested in me. Father Jeff Heward, one of the leaders of the Companions of Christ, also was the campus minister at St. Thomas for the years that I was working for SPO there. Invested in me. Not just like taking a walk with you every once in a while or hearing your confession. I mean, people that were like, hey, let's grab a dinner. Let's grab a burger and talk about life. Or let's go, we'd go to a movie, or we'd do different things. They were friends. They actually were friends in my life. Really powerful.
Yeah, so that is really powerful. In many ways, it kind of mimics the incarnation, like God became man. And even in this case, God in the persons, in these men, these faithful, holy men, sounds like they were there, like even from your, when was that CYC camp? Probably in high school? Or,
sixth grade.
Yeah, so like middle
Seventh
school,
grade.
into high school, into college, and then even in many years, you talk about Gordy. Gordy is the founding president of SPO, and here you are kind of taking the reins from him. What was the significance of that transition? To think about Gordy being such an impactful figure in your life, and in a sense, him handing that to you just 6-7 months ago. Have you reflected much on the significance of the transition of Gordy to you and the significance of that relationship that was such a powerful one in your life?
I certainly have. It is to consider. I mean, it's daunting. I'll put it that way, just to start off with, even just the thought of being the first president that follows a founder.
Yeah.
It was as a prospect of where life was headed for me and my career. And when I think about, here are the things that I want to accomplish in my career. What do I feel called to accomplish? I'm weighing that along with what I like to do, just generally what I like to do in life. And then you add on top of that an actual personalized relationship with a person, right? Who has represented a kind of spiritual or kind of mystical, how I've experienced God, I can go back to Gordy and say he was the one that delivered. He was the conduit or the vehicle that God used in my life as a young man. I do not want to screw this up, right? There's a lot of pressure on all of that. And I think more than anything, what I experienced the Lord saying to me, heavily through my wife, actually, who I think the Lord uses a lot to speak to me, was to really be myself, and that what Gordy sees in me in this process has been something that I can trust in and rely upon. So Gordy was the one that actually went to the board and said, I would like to forward David as my replacement. And the board had to go through a process of making sure that that was a good decision for the sake of SPO. But that's important. It's actually distinct from the board telling Gordy, we think David is the guy. I was really pleased to know that that's how Gordy approached it. And that gives me a certain kind of confidence, because I'm taking the reins from the founder in a way that he, in his humility, laid down and said, I want you to take this up. And let's see where the Lord wants you to take it, David. And he really has done that. People can ask questions about, has he really done that? Did he really? The answer is yes. I mean, it's not easy, and we've had our moments, but he absolutely came and did that for me so that I could become the leader that he feels the Lord is calling me to become. And that's humbling. That's a humbling process. And it's exciting to see how the tapestry, right? We talk about God sees it all. We see, maybe the threads as it comes along. And every once in a while you get a moment to look back, or to your perspective gets pulled back, the drone perspective, I like to call it. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, every once in a while you get a drone moment in your life where you're like, oh my gosh, I see the world so much more. Have you ever experienced that with your phones, right? You see something gorgeous, mm-hmm. Usually it's landscapes, and you take a picture of it. Like a sunset is the best. Right. Sunset's incredible. You like, I got to capture this. You take the picture and it's like, wow, this is terrible. Yeah. I'm not going to,
you almost feel silly.
Yeah. There's no way. How is it that my eye can see something so magnificent and my phone can't capture that? It cannot capture that. Mm-hmm. Right. That's kind of what happens every once in a while. You get a drone moment, or you get the human eye moment, where you're pulled back and you see, this is unbelievable how the Lord has orchestrated this really boy who didn't have a dad, who wanted a dad so much, who learned how to kind of perform for most of his life for people in order to gain affection, get to a point where through many, many years of friendship and mentoring and coaching, realize that I can't perform my way into people's good graces, that actually God doesn't need that from me, and that he really just loves me. Gordy is one of those people that helped me realize that. And he says it to me over and over and over. David, you're super talented. I don't care. I don't care. That's not why I'm your friend. That's not why I care about you. It's not the things you can do for me. That's hard. That's hard to kind of get rid of in your head. I don't know where I took that question. So many different spots, but sorry.
Yeah, no. Lord's faithfulness. I think too, like hearing all that, another question that comes up, I'm sure you could answer it so many ways, but I'm curious, what would you say is the most like impactful commitment that you have made that has like really changed your life?
Marriage has been, I remember the homily at our wedding. It was something like, the commitment that we're making at this point, we have no idea how impactful and how important it is. It's like a cobweb in the way of a Titanic ship. It's just going to push right through it. There's nothing that's going to hold that ship back. And the ship is life, and the cobweb is like your commitment. It's so inadequate. The only thing that's going to actually control the Titanic that is moving, whatever we want to call it, this big ship, is God. He's the only one. So you can't you actually are putting a covenant together, and your faith is going to be the thing that just grabs a hold of God, and the tassels are just, you're right on that tail, the tails of that coat, right? So it's the greatest commitment in my life has been, and what I've experienced has been through marriage. And it's been a becoming reality. The ups and downs, we did not say, I think we wanted to have a big family, but what the heck did we know back 20 years ago? Like, we don't know what that means. Yeah. It's all drama in your head. This is the type of man I want to marry. This is the type of woman I want to marry. I think the most important thing and commitment that we made was that we love Jesus Christ. We believe in his life, death, and resurrection. We believe that he has saved us from our sins, and that, and we're actually attracted to each other. Great. That works. And God can do something with all that. And he has. But that has been the most important, the most impactful commitment I've made in my life is to my wife, and it remains the most important for my children, for my career, for my mission, my faith. It's being faithful to my wife.
When did you first learn in marriage that you were in over your head? Like this, I didn't know we signed up for this. What was that? Can you take us to a moment?
Before or after I first slept on the couch? After. Early on in my marriage, my father passed away suddenly. And dealing with the emotions of that, dealing with the vocation and what that means, and how do you open up and actually express more about your life, right? So we all have these different closets and rooms in our life, in our past, in our history. And I would say I probably felt in over my head because a lot of emotions were like slowly coming up in me that I hadn't really shared with my wife, or that I even knew how to share with my wife. And I thought, how does this work? I could, if God isn't at the center of this, I could see why it's so easy to walk away from this relationship. Because
it's too much.
It's just too much. And you realize, and you kind of process it in different ways. You live in a space of, how do I share everything when I don't even know everything that keeps bubbling up in me? Yeah. Like I said, it's been such a beautiful becoming reality for the two of us. And I would say it was after that, that was 1 year, 1.5 years into our marriage, and my dad passed away. And I needed the Lord at that time. I realized that marriage isn't going to be the thing that gets me through this. It's going to be actually relying on him.
Before we jump into our hot seat, we'll just hit that in a second. Fill in the blank for us. If it wasn't for blank, I wouldn't be the disciple I am today.
If it wasn't for blank, my mind immediately goes to a person. But it goes to my stomach, because I really do love Reese's peanut butter cups, and they keep me at even.
They are good.
It's good to know.
They are so
good in our back pocket.
Reese's peanut butter cups, especially the fat ones. Now the big ones,
so many,
it's like, what's going on? Those are just amazing. If it wasn't for, I would say, my younger brother, Robert, I wouldn't be the disciple I am today. Robert and I were a kind of constant in each other's life from his birth, a couple years after I was born, all the way through well into us raising kids and living actually next to each other. And the kind of friend, brother, the one that would challenge me in life, make me think about a whole bunch of things, and just love life to the full. I did with him so much, and it was kind of in the everyday that we learned how to be disciples for the Lord and kind of run after him and get excited about a life, kind of a journey that would be exciting, an adventure.
Yeah,
I'll put it that way. So yeah, my in more recent years, it's been different because we live in different states now, and it's life takes over with marriage and kids and all of that. But man, I wouldn't be the man I am today, the disciple that I am today, without Robert and his particular passion for the Bible, and for tradition of the Catholic Church, apologetics. I was always inspired and looked up to my little brother in the way that he was passionate about all that.
That's a beautiful constant.
Yeah.
And it's a literal constant. I mean, like you said, you ended up as neighbors, before he moved, out of state. And
that's right.
You guys have been so close since. That's so cool. So we've got some hot seat questions. But here's the deal with the hot seat. We ask you the questions, you give us the quick answer, and we just keep going through it. So I'm going to want to ask all sorts of follow-up questions. I'm not allowed to do that. So where are we starting, Emma?
All right. Who is your biggest hero?
John Paul II. Close second would be my wife.
Good answers.
Who's the most famous person you've ever met? Who's not John Paul II?
Most famous person that I've ever met, Drew Brees, Mel Gibson, Jim Caviezel. These are kind of in that world of people.
It's awesome. Controversial, but is a hot dog a sandwich?
No, that's controversial. People really believe a hot dog is a sandwich?
Of course it is.
Controversial.
Anyway, I can't comment. Biggest pet peeve, David?
Biggest pet peeve, and when I say something where what I mean, but you have to feel like you got to correct me. Can't stand it at home. I can't, whatever. If people know what you mean, just let it go.
It's an offense.
Answer the
just
charity.
Let it go.
Praise the Lord. I have a few people I'd like you to talk to.
All right. What would you be the patron saint of?
Oh my goodness. Patron saint of... peanut butter cups is the first thing that comes to mind.
Hey, I don't think there is one yet.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I'd be the patron saint of peanut butter cups.
There we go.
How about the patron saint of chocolate? I mean, I kind of feel like that's a genre. I'm commenting. What's your favorite genre of music, David? Favorite genre?
I love James Taylor. So what is that genre?
Easy listening.
I love easy listening.
There it is.
Have you ever seen him in concert?
No.
Okay.
No, I've always wanted to.
Never did.
It's James Taylor, and some might think it doesn't sound exactly the same, but John Michael Talbot, that kind of folky type
guitar.
stuff. I can easily drive in the car and just listen to that on my way to anywhere.
That's awesome. Well, we're wrapping up.
Yeah.
David, thanks for being here.
Great to be with you.
Just like that.
Yeah.
That was fast.
Yeah, so grateful to have you on the show. Emma, where can people find us?
Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube.
All the podcast app. We
And
got
Overcast.
video.
Gotta throw that one in
Overcast,
there.
if you're into that sort of thing, which
Yeah.
I am. And David, we're so grateful that you're here. I hope that folks would rate and review the podcast, share it with your friends, and we'll get ready to see you next time.
Be back in a couple weeks.
Yeah, grateful, David.
Great to be with you. Congrats again.